And things. Okay. I'm going to pass around this. Does anybody have a pen? This is today's main attendance. And with your name and email, we keep this record. Alana is not here today. There's a lot of people not here today. She's the one with the attendance record. So I'll make sure that gets transferred over to that record. It's a book.
How do the people on the line get it?
Well, we write it down. I'll have somebody do that.
I usually take care of it.
Yeah. Great question. Josh, did you have that, where that's located at? Oh. That's the third, fourth one down? Yes, it is.
Going back to the office, back to my office website now.
Yeah, no, I'm just gonna reference it. So what the program is gonna be today, I wanted to, is usually I take some time what I call the prior's talk, and just take, it's kind of housekeeping and things like this. We're gonna dive a little deeper today in that because we're gonna have elections this year, and there are people who are, I'm sure, interested. And that's what this document is about. And it'll be informative to those who are new here, because it just explains what the officers do and what they're responsible for. And someday, maybe, if as you discern, you can participate in that process. So it's informative to everybody. So the second, and then our talks are going to include a discussion on St. Catherine Siena's book, and we'll have someone lead that discussion. It's just what we call a colloquy or a discussion. The other thing we are going to do as well is go through the other handout, which is a 4-page document from our esteemed, one of the friars, his name is Father Bart, Torre, and it's titled "The Church Speaks to the Lay Member of the Order of Preachers." And you can find this document online and at Dominican, Idaho. .org/formation. And you go down through the page on the left or right hand side and you'll see Father Bart Torre's formation program. It's someone. Formation program by Father Bart Torre. And I actually typed it out once in modern. And I couldn't find it. It's funny, but it's online. This is the old one. And he put this together many, many years ago. In 1984. And I mention that because I think, as you all know, and as Catholics, you know that writing the truth has no time. It transcends all time because Christ is truth. So what he says here matters. The other part of this talk is it's always informative for me to reread this because it kind of freshes anew the meaning of being a lay Dominican or a third order Dominican. So it's just important that we get through this. It's a little bit thick in one sense of the word. And I know, Brendan, you deal with this in school when you're teaching. So just be aware of that. Any questions at all?
Where was that?
That's under the formation banner.
Yeah.
And go, I think it's on the right side of the page. It says Formation Program by Father Bart Torre, OP. Okay. And in there, I think 3 to 4 down is.
I see it.
You see
the
it?
Church Speaks to Lay Members.
That's it. There's one that's actually was typed into modern type, and this is the old one I pulled up that you have in front of you. Okay. Okay. Let's get started with this document here. One of the things that there are 9 people on our council. There's approximately, we have 20 27 to 35 or more members that show interest to a degree and attend our meetings, either online or in person. We typically have anywhere from 15 to 25 here in a meeting, 15 to 22, somewhere in there. We're a little shy, several of this month, but that's okay. We're probably either online, and what we do have is what we call a remote formation program. And the remote formation program can be found at the top of the page of formation. So if you go to this web page, and that's dominicanidaho.org/formation, at the top of the column you'll see distance formation, and the standards for that are listed there. This year in September, we're going to have elections, and they take office on the 1st of October. And so I just wanted to go through these different positions and kind of detail what's required. All of the 9 people are up for election this year. You know, every seat is up for election. We do not worry about what's the term? Staggering the offices, because we always re-elect somebody that knows what they're doing in some position. And the rule says that it can only serve 2 terms in the same position in consecutively. You could come back 6 or 8 or 10 years later, whatever, and serve the same position.
John?
Yes.
You left the LPC rep off of the sheet here.
It's absorbed into the sub prior. Is that it? Nope, it's left off completely, yeah.
Oh, that's weird. Just a second.
Unless I'm misreading it.
Yeah, it is left off. That's the 9th.
That's all right. I can explain.
So is that number 9?
That would be number 9, yeah.
Is the LPC rep, which is a lay provincial council rep.
Now, let's start with the priors. And we'll get into a little bit of where that name comes from a little bit later. But this gives you a link as to, in the particular directory. Now that is kind of like the bylaws of the province. The West of the United States is juridically or divided into 4 provinces. The Western United States is its own province, and there's like 36 to 40 chapters, in other words, scattered throughout the Western United States. Around the whole United States, there's probably 300 chapters. And the standard chapter, like ours, has somewhere between 30 to 35 people involved. Whenever you get too many, you kind of end up breaking off into a new one. For instance, in the what do you call the San Francisco area, the Bay Area, I guess what they call it, which I avoid as much as I can. But to be honest with you, there are a lot of faithful people there. The incredible culture of Catholics in San Francisco, of Dominicans who are very faithful, for lack of a better word, and it does describe them conservative, even in the midst of this dire disaster. Amazing people that serve the Christian community there. And so every place has its good. Even as we know from the days of Rome, when they started to come to Rome and the conversions were just massive. It's happening today as well. Get back to the point. The prior or priors. One last thing. I currently serve as the president of the Western Province. Not only prior here, so I keep relatively busy. But they elected me to that position, and I'm going, are you crazy? And I'm the crazy one. So the prior, obviously, is the person responsible to make sure that things come together and that each person does his or her job in that, and it's important. They are responsible to the leadership of the province, which ultimately is what they call the friar provincial, who is the, for lack of a better word, the master, the head of the province, the principal priest who runs the Dominican province. Here in the Western United States, the name is the most holy name of Jesus, Western Dominican province. A lot of words there. So my job is to make sure that we're in compliance with the rule and with the canon law that applies. It's not that complicated. It's that you just stay within a framework or guidelines. They're not dictatorial in that sense. The next one is the sub-prior or sub-prioress, and that person just simply takes over at the prior camp. Kind of the person with the, at a heartbeat, they take over. But they're also going to be taking on additional, with this new election, they're going to be taking over a couple additional tasks. One is to become the hospitality master. Now, we used to have that as a separate office, but we're kind of joining it because the sub-prior or prioress typically doesn't do much, except take over when the prior is absent for vacation or that whatnot. This way, this person can take on that additional task and get things organized. Hospitality, that means to make sure food gets here, the meeting times and dates are set up with the facility, and just the logistics of getting things together. And reminding people that we can bring food and that type of thing. The next one is the secretary. And that too is listed in the particular directory. Oh, that's what I was going to say. The particular directory is the bylaws of the province. And they tell us in some minor detail of what the various duties of these positions are. And I do provide a link. For those who are interested, can go to that link and just take a look. And the chapter bylaws detail it as well. One of the things I say this laughing because one of my faults is I'm an attorney. So the bylaws look like something that an attorney would write, but if you just distill it, it just gets down to normal, what does secretaries typically do? They take notes, keep the records, and report to people. It's not difficult. It's the same with the treasurer. You'll note that they're responsible for the money and making sure it's handled appropriately. Sandra's done a really good job over the last, 6 years?
Something like that.
Something like that. And I'm so appreciative of her work because it always is up to date and it makes sense and it comes to us by way of good follow through. So I always appreciate that. Next is the formation director. Alana Bird is our current formation director, and Josh is our assistant formation director. And Alana is her job. She also serves, by the way, as the chairwoman of the Provincial Formation Commission. So what does that mean in the scheme of things is that she's helping put together a renewed formation program. Boy, are they busy. She's really something. The next one on the list is the distance formation director. Now that's not a new position on the council, it's just a new designation. And that person is going to be responsible, subject to the formation director in general, but the distance formation director is responsible for communication with distance formation members. What is distance formation? There are people who live, if they live, I think it's 3 or more hours away from Boise, one-way distance, or 2 hours, I can't remember exactly, it's on the webpage. So this person is responsible. If they're really interested in the formation we can offer, the province is authorized that they can work through this chapter in formation. So we've developed a formation program for that, and that person will be responsible to take attendance and stay in touch with those people. The technical masters.
It needs a new name.
It does.
That's such a terrible
What should we
name.
call it?
IT.
IT.
That's what it is.
Okay. Well, that's what, they're just obviously responsible. Pamela here has done a fantastic job here last several years. I mean, long time.
Yeah, I was also contemplating this, John, with putting it as an official role. So who's going to take it?
I don't know.
When it, 1 or 2 terms.
It'll shift through,
Okay.
just like everything else. That person is responsible to make sure that electronics work, that type of thing. It's not that. And the chapter tries to get updated material as much as possible. Or like electronics as much as we can, so that they're not handicapped by the lack of, the virtual technology. Chapter promoters number 8, the chapter promoter, David has been the chapter promoter as well as Pamela for a decade practically.
Yep.
And both have been very responsive to that. What does that mean? They have ideas. Like David came up with an additional idea this morning. We're on the radio. He helped us get on the radio and sustain it. And we're on the radio every Tuesday morning at 7 a.m. To somewhere around 7:20. And so we have used that to get the word out about us, number one. Number two is to develop newsletters for the diocesan paper, to stay in touch with parishes, parish bulletins, give notice of that we're having things happen. David had an idea this morning that every Tuesday we should be talking about the date of professions. The professions are when you were received into the order. We do that once a year typically, sometimes once or twice a year, but the main one is the third Saturday in October, and the chapter promoter helps get the word out about these events. We also do once a year an inquiry class, because there's one way to get the message out. Contact parishes, do so on the radio, get the word out through the newspaper. Look, the Dominicans are having an inquiry class. We usually have a packet of information. In the times in the past, last 5 or 6 years, we had one in which there was like 10 people showed up, and then another time no one shows up, and then sometime one showed up one time, and then last year 3 showed up. So it is a method by which we can get the word out, take only 1 hour of their time and answer questions and get information out. So that is the job of the chapter promoter. And then the last is the lay provincial council representative. And I don't know how he got left off. I don't know. He probably fell asleep. The lay provincial council, is the provincial place where our delegate goes to a convention in California, and they all get together and they vote and do business of the province once a year. This year, it's the 17th, 18th, and 19th of July in Menlo Park at Corpus Christi Monastery at Vallombrosa Retreat Center, which the Corpus Christi is one of those, monastery is a traditional nuns monastery, and they're in cloister, and they're wonderful. I mean, they go over and we go and meet with them after Mass, and they're very sweet young ladies that have made a decision to take evangelical counsels and live the life of Christ. They're amazing people. So anyway, the lay provincial council representative represents our chapter at the convention of all the other chapters from the Western Province. Now that I've bored you to death.
John, can I comment about the LPC? April, a couple of years ago, as just a member of our chapter, went to the LPC. While she couldn't vote, she went to experience what the LPC is all about. And as your current LPC rep, I would encourage anybody that wants to come to the LPC just to see what it's about. You're welcome to do that. You can come at your own cost, but it's an experience that is well worthwhile. And it gives you a broader sense of how all these Dominican chapters in the Western United States are connected, how we are together. And that's one of the things we do at the LPC, is we talk about how we can have continuity amongst ourselves while having each chapter being individual in how they run their chapter. And then if there are questions or concerns, that's where someone like John, as the prior of the LPC, steps in and works with the individual chapters if there's a concern. Thank you for giving me that moment, John.
Thank you, David. You summarized it quite well. So if there's anyone that wants to go, even delegate or not, we have limited seating, but accommodations, but it is a retreat center, so it has that environment. And obviously religious Catholic environment, and it's lots of prayer and mass and attendance. But that weekend is done, there's business done as well. And a lot of, to be honest with you, a little bit of imbibing, because they're Catholics. And enjoying their company and getting to know each other from all these various lives from around. In particular, Connor's from Seattle originally. There's a chapter in Seattle, and they're quite dynamic. They're at Blessed Sacrament, and they have a very huge, diverse group of people, obviously college age because they're on the college campus, all the way up to elderly and everything in between. So it's just part of the life here as Dominicans. We are part of a very worldwide group of people at the Catholic Church. Part of the reason, and in closing, with regard about this anyway, is that whoever gets elected is expected under the current leadership to take on these jobs and do it, take on the responsibilities to fulfill them. We need more than ever, as we get organized and as we grow, to be more responsible and follow through. And I've so appreciated our current leadership that's followed through and responsible. So it's an ongoing process to be a part of running this organization. And so that's why we did this and put this together. Does anyone have any questions?
I just want to confirm
Yes,
those
Mark.
dates in Menlo Park, that's 17th to the 19th?
Correct, of July. Yeah. And if you're interested, I'll just give you the facts now. The accommodations, both meals and sleep, a bed, is $392 for the weekend, and that includes meals on Friday evening through Sunday morning. And
Well, I just checked my calendar. I thought that was like a Thursday through Saturday.
it's
17th through the 19th of July is Thursday through Saturday.
it's the 18th through the 20th. Sorry about that.
That makes a big difference for me.
18th through, you would arrive Friday afternoon
Okay,
and head out Sunday morning
okay.
after breakfast, and that's, yeah, these dates get confused now, especially to me. Great question. Anyway, we are planning that right now, so, any other questions? One thing I wanted to know was in today's office, divine office, there's a reference in the intercession where it says, "You are present to all who preach your gospel and give power to the word. Make us today preachers of your resurrection by your holiness of life." And it kind of reminded me that's what the Dominicans are about. It's the order of preachers. It's about understanding the truth, getting to know the scriptures well, and only to the degree that you're able to. I mean, you're not going to walk out of any situation and have a doctorate in theology or in master or in theology or biblical studies. But it's one of those things that is like, if you're interested, it becomes a gift. You start to fall in love with the study, and you can't get enough of it. I think that's one of the charisms that God gives us through St. Dominic. It's a gift that some of you probably already have. I didn't, but the order certainly has provided that to me. So just be aware, today we are preachers, according to this intercession. It comes actually from the Psalms, but it talks about, make us preachers of your resurrection by our holiness of life. We'll talk about that a little bit more a little later. But I just wanted to reference that. That is why we're here, to enjoy each other's company, to be a part of this fellowship, but also get to know our faith and be able to transmit. That's what we're here for, as laity and members that Christ calls us to do, which is age-old. part of the process. You know, St. Paul says, woe to me if I don't get out there and preach the gospel. As he says in Corinthians, it matters that we're part of the process in this secular world. Okay, any questions? If there are any questions or comments regarding the officers and the responsibilities, you can send them to me or give me a call. My email address is john@keenan.org. I'll put it up here. Otherwise, let's take let's take a 20-minute break, grab something to eat and coffee. You can come back here at noon. We'll get started up. And maybe a little afternoon, but anyway, I'll start ringing the bell at noon. But you can bring your food here or whatever and eat it through. But we want to get through the